Most people never talk about what happens after, not the moment of passion, not the pursuit, but the stillness that follows, that silence in the room when breath has slowed and thoughts begin to rise, right there after the fire. Something ancient stirs in a man's mind. Some men feel peace, others feel emptiness. Some want to hold you close, others pull away without knowing why. This isn't just mood, it's energy. And if you understand this shift, you can see right into the spirit of a man, maybe even deeper than he sees himself. In this video, I want to show you something many overlook, what truly passes through a man's mind after intimacy, and how those unspoken thoughts hold the key to real emotional connection. We'll explore why some men go quiet, why others detach, and why vulnerability can scare even the strongest. But more than that, I'll teach you how presence, awareness, and energy mastery can rebuild the bridge between the body and the heart. We'll walk through Shaolin principles, ancient, powerful, and rarely spoken in the modern world of relationships, because emotional connection isn't built in the words before the act, it's built in the silence after. And if you can meet a man in that space, his rawest, most honest state, you don't just share a moment, you create a bond, a spiritual one. So stay with me until the end. You'll learn things no dating book or relationship podcast will teach you. Welcome to Shaolin Soulfire. If this speaks to something inside you, subscribe now. Let's grow together in truth, in presence, and in power. A man's truth is not revealed in the heat of the moment. It's revealed in what he does once the heat is gone. In Shaolin philosophy, every movement must be followed by stillness, every strike by a return to breath. In the temple, after intense training, we sit. We don't rush to the next thing, we reflect, because it's in the quiet after action that clarity arrives. The same applies to intimacy. After the fire of connection, there must be water, cooling, calming, restoring, not just for the body, but for the spirit. This is where his real intention surfaces, not in what he says before, not in what he does during, but in what rises in the silence that follows. Is he relaxed or agitated? Does he soften or does he turn cold? The mind, unguarded, begins to speak, and many men, when they meet themselves in that stillness, don't always like what they find. Some feel regret, not because of you, but because the act pulled back a veil they weren't ready to face. Others feel a longing, surprised by how deeply they care. The Shaolin path teaches us not to judge these responses, but to witness them, because whatever arises after intimacy doesn't come from nowhere, it comes from within. Echoes of belief, fear, desire, and conditioning. The silence after intensity is a mirror. You can't force it to show what you want. You can only sit with it and see. And this is where emotional connection begins, not in the effort to hold onto a feeling, but in the willingness to be present with what unfolds when the moment is over. Stillness is never empty. It reveals everything. Desire burns fast. It clouds the mind, rushes the breath, makes everything feel urgent and alive. But when it passes, what's left tells the real story. Many men chase intimacy, thinking it will make them feel wanted, powerful, even whole. But what they're chasing is often not connection, it's escape, from loneliness, from self-doubt, from the weight of their own silence. And so the body moves forward, while the heart stays behind. After the act, when the flame settles, a strange emptiness can appear. Not because the moment was wrong, but because the bond was shallow. No energy truly exchanged. No presence held, just motion. In the Shaolin way, this is not judged, it's studied. Every experience is a teacher. That hollow feeling isn't failure, it's feedback. A signal from within saying, you've touched the surface but missed the depth. Real connection requires more than chemistry. It asks for stillness, for breath, for the courage to stay present when there's nothing left to prove. In ancient martial training, a warrior isn't tested during the strike, but in the pause after. Can he return to center? Can he stay open even after intensity? It's the same here. To move from raw desire to conscious intimacy takes discipline, a soft kind of strength, one that isn't trying to possess but to feel, one that doesn't fear the silence but listens through it. When a man begins to train his awareness, when he treats connection as something sacred, not just thrilling, everything shifts. The body still hungers, but the heart begins to guide. And what was once a chase becomes a presence, a calm, steady meeting between two spirits, not just two bodies. Most people ask the wrong question. They wonder, does he love her? Does he miss her? But the deeper question is simpler and far more revealing. Can he feel at all? There are men who move through life numb, not because they lack emotion, but because they were never trained to stay with it. The body feels too much, too fast, so they disconnect. They live in their heads, in plans, in distractions. Intimacy becomes mechanical, presence becomes rare. But a man who has trained his mind, who understands stillness, who has learned to breathe even through discomfort, he stays. He stays in his body after the act. He stays with the awkwardness, the softness, the truth that rises when performance ends. This is not weakness, this is mastery. In Shaolin teachings, we train to remain in pain, remain in stillness, remain in truth, not run from it. The same discipline applies here. Emotional connection cannot survive if the man disappears the moment the fire dims. The silence that follows intimacy is sacred. If he meets it with presence, connection deepens. If he meets it with absence, something breaks. This is why so many feel confused after closeness. The body was touched, but the spirit was never met. He was there, but not really there. Not breathing, not feeling, just reacting. Presence is not a mood, it is a practice. A man who lives in his body, aware, steady, open, creates space for connection to grow. It's not about the words he says or the promises he makes. It's about whether he can sit in silence, stay in his breath, and still be with her. That kind of presence is rare. And when it's real, it speaks louder than love. There's a kind of silence that feels heavier than words. It doesn't come from the other person, it comes from within. After intimacy, when the body has slowed and the moment has passed, many men feel it rise. A quiet fog, hard to name, harder to explain. For some, it's guilt handed down through generations, taught to believe that desire is wrong, that pleasure must be punished. For others, it's the weight of performance, the fear of not being enough, of not measuring up, of not being truly seen. And for many, it's past pain, unhealed, unspoken, returning in the stillness. This shame doesn't always scream. Often it whispers, and it whispers loudest after the fire has gone out. Shaolin wisdom teaches that what rises in stillness is what has been buried in noise. After the body is done reaching, the mind begins revealing. And if a man hasn't trained to face himself, he will flinch, not from her, but from his own reflection. Most men aren't taught how to sit with this discomfort. They try to outrun it with distraction, detachment, withdrawal. But the one who walks the mindful path does something different. He stays, he breathes, he doesn't push the fog away. He watches it, names it, meets it with quiet compassion. This is a discipline, to not escape when the feelings get heavy, to not blame the partner, to not shrink in shame, but to observe gently as if tending to a wound. Because that's what it is, a wound, and every time he chooses to stay instead of flee, healing begins. Shame loses its grip when brought into the light, and the man who can hold space for his own vulnerability is the one who becomes safe for someone else's. In the Shaolin path, strength isn't measured by how hard you hit. It's measured by how open you can stay without flinching. True power doesn't need to clench. It doesn't need to hide behind silence or pride. It breathes, it listens, it feels. After intimacy, a quiet choice appears, one that's often missed, but deeply important. In that soft, unguarded moment, a man must decide. Does he close again? Does he reach for distraction, sarcasm, indifference, or does he stay open even though it feels exposed? This moment is subtle, but it shapes everything. Because vulnerability after closeness is the bridge, and if he shuts down too quickly, the bond weakens, even if nothing is said. The body was near, but the spirit retreated. Shaolin teachings call vulnerability courage in softness, not the softness of weakness, but the softness that takes effort, the softness that feels the urge to run and stays anyway. This is not natural for most men. From early on, they're trained to protect, to suppress, to stay one step removed. So when that wall drops even briefly, it's unfamiliar ground. But unfamiliar doesn't mean wrong. It means new. And to walk the path of self-mastery means learning how to stay in that space without needing to explain it, control it, or escape from it. Just to be there, breathing, feeling. That is the real test. Not whether he felt connection in the moment, but whether he can remain connected when the armor starts to call him back. Because love is not just in the passion, it's in the pause. In the seconds where one breath, one honest look, one unguarded word could build a bond or break it. And the man who chooses softness in that moment, he chooses depth. Every time. After giving, The masculine energy often wants to return inward, like the tide pulling back from the shore, not out of rejection, but restoration. This is nature. Even in the temple, after intense exertion, we don't keep pushing. We withdraw into stillness, into breath, into center. But here's the difference. Contraction is not disappearance. A man who's trained in his energy knows how to return to himself without vanishing from the space he shares with another. He doesn't shut down, he doesn't create confusion. He simply regathers, quietly while staying present. This takes discipline, because the urge to flee can be strong, especially if he's not used to being that open, that seen. The energy of intimacy, when real, can be overwhelming. The mind might race to protect itself, create distance, pretend nothing happened. But a man rooted in his practice doesn't need to perform or escape. He allows himself to contract with awareness. He may speak less, move slower, but he remains grounded. His presence doesn't vanish, it deepens, becomes more still, more reflective. In ancient traditions, strength was never just about force. It was about rhythm, the ability to expand and contract with balance, to know when to act and when to rest without abandoning those around you in the process. This is what separates reaction from mastery, to feel the need for space and still choose presence, to let the nervous system settle without disconnecting from the heart. So if a man grows quiet after intimacy, it doesn't always mean he's distant. Sometimes he's simply returning to his center. And when he's trained, when he's conscious, he'll let you feel that he's still there, still connected, still steady. That's not avoidance, that's strength in its calmest form. The real listening begins when the noise is gone. After the laughter fades, after the body's quiet, after the moment passes, what remains is the space, and in that space, something deeper tries to speak. But only if someone's listening. Most men are taught to listen with purpose, to solve, to charm, to respond. But that's not true listening, it's strategy. A man seeking emotional connection must move beyond performance. He must stop trying to be interesting and become interested, not just in her words, but in her being. This kind of listening has weight to it. It doesn't rush, it doesn't interrupt, it doesn't search for the next clever thing to say. It sits with what's being shared and lets it land fully, like rain sinking into dry earth. Shaolin practice trains stillness, not only in the body but in the mind. In meditation, we don't respond to the breath, we observe it. We don't argue with our thoughts, we watch them pass. This same discipline applies to the way we listen. Presence without agenda, awareness without grasping. To witness someone without trying to fix them, change them, or measure their words against our own story. This is rare, and when it happens after intimacy, it's even more powerful, because the body has already opened. What's left to open is the heart. A man who can listen in that moment, not to respond but to feel, is offering something sacred, not validation, not solutions, just presence, a mirror with no judgment. And in that silence, something soft and ancient comes to life. Trust, not because of what he says, but because of what he allows her to say and how he stays with it, fully, without turning away. Yin and Yang are not just forces in nature, they are in every breath, every step, every relationship. In Shaolin training, we study them in combat. One energy yields, the other asserts. One softens, the other strikes. But the same laws apply beyond the training hall, especially in the intimate space between two people. After closeness, there is always an energetic shift. The question is, do the energies settle together or do they clash in silence? A man must be sensitive enough to feel this. Not just his own state, but hers too. Is his presence grounding her? Is it soothing, steady, like earth after rain? Or is his energy restless, pulling away, causing unease without a word spoken? This requires more than empathy. It requires mastery, the ability to observe energy without reacting to it, to adjust not through words, but through subtle shifts, through breath, posture, awareness. When yin and yang move in harmony, nothing needs to be said. The atmosphere speaks for itself. There is peace even in silence, warmth even in stillness. But when they are out of balance, when one retreats too fast or holds on too tightly, the dissonance is felt immediately, and what could have been sacred becomes ordinary, or worse, wounding. In ancient traditions, union is not just physical, it's spiritual alignment. Two energies meeting in mutual presence, neither dominating nor submitting, but flowing. This isn't about technique, it's about tuning, like an instrument adjusting to match the room. To be aware of how your energy affects another is a form of deep respect. And when that awareness is alive, even a quiet moment after intimacy becomes something holy, a space not just of closeness, but of harmony. In the way of inner mastery, what happens after is just as important as what came before. This is true in combat, in meditation, and in intimacy. The closing of a moment carries weight. It leaves an imprint, felt long after the body has moved on. Post-intimacy care is not a performance. It's not a checklist of things to say or do. It's a reflection of one's training, of how steady a man is in himself. A man who has walked the path of discipline doesn't abandon presence once desire is satisfied. He remains, not to impress, not to gain, but because the energy still requires tending. He stays calm, speaks clearly, doesn't rush the space with noise or vanish into silence. He knows the nervous system is still soft, the emotions still close to the surface, and so he holds the moment like a monk holds the bowl, gently but with full attention. Shaolin wisdom teaches that transitions matter. The way you exit a form is as meaningful as the strike itself. The way you end a meditation affects the energy you carry into your day. Intimacy is no different. The afterglow is part of the ritual. It's not the end, it's the integration. When a man nurtures safety after closeness, he builds more than comfort. He builds trust. He allows space for her to unfold, to breathe, to feel that she was not just seen in passion, but valued in the quiet that follows. This kind of care doesn't demand, it doesn't chase, it simply stays present, fully, softly, with nothing to prove. And over time, this steady presence offered again and again becomes the foundation where real connection grows. Not through grand gestures, but through 1,000 small moments of being truly there. There is a kind of silence that speaks louder than words ever could. It doesn't ask for meaning, it doesn't try to explain, it simply is. After intimacy, this silence is sacred. The energy is still alive, still moving through both bodies, still echoing in the breath. And in that space, the man who has trained his awareness knows better than to rush in with conversation or conclusions. He allows the moment to settle, to land, to be felt fully. In Shaolin practice, silence is not emptiness, it is presence. Between each strike, each breath, each thought, there is a pause, a space that holds everything together. Without it, form falls apart. Without it, depth is lost. The same applies here. When two people lie in stillness, breathing the same air, hearts slowing in rhythm, they are not disconnected, they are aligning, tuning into a frequency beyond words, beyond performance, beyond roles. But this requires comfort with the unspoken, and most are not taught to value that. They mistake silence for awkwardness, stillness for distance, so they fill it with jokes, with movement, with noise, anything to avoid feeling too much. Yet the mindful man stays. He breathes, not just for himself, but with her. He doesn't seek to lead or follow. He just shares the space softly, attentively, letting the moment breathe for itself. This is not a technique, it's a way of being, a practice of surrender, because true connection doesn't always need to be explained. Sometimes the most powerful thing two people can do is nothing together, just be. And in that stillness, something rare begins to take root. A quiet knowing, a deep safety, the kind of bond that doesn't come from words but holds more truth than any could ever say. What happens after intimacy isn't just the end of a moment, it's the beginning of truth. In that quiet space, when the body has settled and the mind begins to open, something deeper tries to speak. If a man is awake, he can hear it. If he's still, he can feel it. This isn't about doing more, it's about being more aware, about staying present, even when it's easier to pull away, about listening, even when nothing is said. The emotional bond so many seek isn't created by force. It's revealed in how gently we hold each other after the fire has gone out. In Shaolin wisdom, the highest discipline is not in the act itself, but in what follows. The way we move through the silence, the way we meet ourselves and one another, not with judgment, but with clarity and calm. So take this into your life, into your relationships, into every moment where softness meets strength. The quiet after the storm is not empty, it's where the real connection begins. Thank you for walking this path with us. If this message resonates with you, And if you seek to live with more presence, more peace and more depth, we invite you to subscribe to our channel Shaolin Soulfire. Done. Until next time, move gently, breathe deeply, and stay present.